Hello there. Welcome to Calm Science. Settle into a comfortable position and let the day begin to fade away. There is no need to hold on to your thoughts. Allow them to drift like leaves on a slow-moving stream. Your body knows how to rest. Let it grow heavy and still. Let your breath find its own gentle rhythm, in and out, without any effort. Tonight, we will not be traveling to distant stars or deep oceans. Instead, we journey to a world that is just as vast and mysterious. We are walking into a quiet forest. We will explore the silent life of trees and the rich, complex world of the forest floor beneath them. You can drift in and out of listening at any time. The path will remain soft and easy to follow. There is nothing to solve here, only the gentle patterns of the woods to observe as you fall asleep. A tree's roots are often described as a mirror image of its branches, spreading just as wide underground. While this is a beautiful image, the reality is often more complex and practical. Most tree roots actually occupy shallow, sprawling space, extending 2 to 3 times the width of the canopy. They grow where air and water are most available, typically within the top 60 centimeters of soil. A deep taproot may anchor the tree, but the vast majority of its root system is a web of fine, delicate structures, constantly exploring the earth for moisture and nutrients. In this way, the tree is not just growing up into the air, but also out into the ground, securing its foundation with a wide and patient embrace. Let that idea rest for a moment before we move on. The forest floor is covered by a soft layer of fallen leaves, twigs, and other organic matter. This layer is known to scientists as leaf litter, or duff. It is far from being just debris. This blanket serves many quiet purposes. It insulates the soil from extreme heat and cold, preserving moisture during dry spells. As it slowly decomposes, it becomes a primary source of nutrients for the entire forest ecosystem. The litter provides a home and food for a vast community of tiny creatures, from bacteria and fungi to insects and earthworms. Over time, this community works together to break down the fallen material, recycling it into the rich, dark soil that new life depends on. Nothing urgent here, only a slow and steady pattern. Within the trunk of a tree, there are 2 types of transport tissue that work in opposite directions. Xylem tubes act like microscopic straws, pulling water and dissolved minerals up from the roots to the leaves. This upward journey is powered by evaporation from the leaves, a process called transpiration. Meanwhile, another tissue called phloem carries the sugars created during photosynthesis from the leaves down to the rest of the tree. This sugary sap provides energy for the trunk, branches, and roots to grow and survive. These 2 systems work in a silent, continuous loop, nourishing the tree from its deepest roots to its highest leaves. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. Some trees exhibit a fascinating behavior known as crown shyness. In certain forests, when you look up at the canopy, you can see that the crowns of individual trees do not touch each other. Instead, they are separated by gaps, forming a network of channels that looks like a beautifully mapped puzzle against the sky. The exact reason for this is still being studied. Some researchers believe it is a way to prevent the spread of leaf-eating insects. Others suggest the branches are abraded by wind, creating a natural pruning effect. As you rest, picture this quiet respect for personal space among the giants of the forest. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. The air in a forest is not just still or moving with the wind. It is also being gently humidified by the trees themselves. Through a process called transpiration, a large tree can release hundreds of liters of water vapor into the atmosphere on a single warm day. This water is drawn up from the soil through the roots and released through tiny pores on the underside of leaves. This process is essential for the tree to pull nutrients upward, but it also has a profound effect on the local climate. It cools the air and increases humidity, creating a more stable and gentle environment for all the life that calls the forest home. From a distance, a forest is breathing water into the sky. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. Beneath the forest floor lies a hidden, intricate network that connects nearly everything. This is the mycelial network, a vast web of fungal threads, or hyphae. These threads are incredibly fine, much thinner than a human hair, yet they can stretch for kilometers through the soil. Many of these fungi form symbiotic relationships with tree roots, known as mycorrhizae. The fungus helps the tree absorb water and nutrients like phosphorus, and in return, the tree provides the fungus with sugars. Up close, this network acts like an underground internet, shuttling resources and even information between trees, connecting the entire forest in a silent, cooperative community. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. Many people believe that moss only grows on the north side of a tree, but this is a simplification. Mosses are simple, non-vascular plants that thrive in cool, moist, and shady conditions. In the northern hemisphere, the south side of a tree receives more direct sunlight, making it warmer and drier. Therefore, mosses often find the shaded, damper conditions on the north side more favorable. However, in a dense forest with a thick canopy, all sides of a tree trunk might be equally shaded and damp. In such an environment, moss can grow happily all the way around the trunk. Beneath the surface, the presence of moss tells a story about moisture and light, not just direction. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. Decaying logs on the forest floor play a vital role in the health of the ecosystem. These are often called nurse logs because they provide a perfect cradle for new life. As a log decomposes, it becomes a soft, spongy reservoir of moisture and nutrients. Its decaying wood offers a fertile seedbed for new tree seedlings, which can set their roots into the rotting material, drawing nourishment that might be scarce in the surrounding soil. Mosses, fungi, and ferns also colonize these logs, creating a miniature ecosystem teeming with life. Elsewhere in this picture, what seems like an end is actually a nurturing beginning, a quiet transfer of life from one generation to the next. Let the thought soften at the edges and fade. Have you ever wondered why autumn leaves turn such brilliant colors? It is not because the cold weather adds color to them. Instead, the colors were there all along, hidden by the dominant green of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the molecule that captures sunlight for photosynthesis. As the days grow shorter and colder in autumn, trees stop producing chlorophyll. As the green fades away, other pigments that were present in the leaves all summer are finally revealed. These are the carotenoids, which create yellow and orange hues. Some trees also produce new pigments called anthocyanins, which create vibrant reds and purples. In quieter hours, the tree is not gaining color but revealing its hidden warmth. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. The bark of a tree is like a protective suit of armor. It has an outer layer of dead tissue that shields the living inner tissues from insects, disease, extreme temperatures, and physical damage. As a tree grows, its trunk expands and the outer bark must stretch. For some trees, like oaks, the bark cracks into deep ridges and furrows. For others, like birches, it peels off in thin, papery layers. Some trees, like the smooth-barked beech, have bark that can expand without cracking. With unhurried steps, each tree develops a unique texture, a fingerprint of its species and its history, telling a story of its growth and resilience against the world. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. When you walk in a pine forest, you might notice a soft, springy carpet of needles underfoot. This layer is different from the leaf litter in a deciduous forest. Pine needles are acidic, and as they decompose, they create a more acidic soil environment. They also contain waxy coatings and compounds that make them decompose much more slowly than broad leaves. This slow decomposition leads to a thicker, less broken down layer on the forest floor. This unique environment favors specific types of plants and fungi that are adapted to acidic conditions. Along a steady path, the choices a tree makes in its leaves shape the very ground on which it stands. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. The vast root systems of trees perform a gentle but powerful service in managing water. During heavy rainfall, the forest canopy intercepts some of the water, and the litter on the floor acts like a sponge, absorbing much of the rest. This prevents rapid runoff and soil erosion. The water that does seep into the ground is held by the web of tree roots, which slowly release it back into the soil and atmosphere. This process helps to recharge groundwater aquifers and maintain a steady flow in streams and rivers, even during dry periods, without any hurry. An entire forest acts as a massive, living reservoir, moderating the flow of water with quiet efficiency. Feel the calm gather around you again. In some forests, particularly in dry regions, trees have been observed sharing water through their interconnected root systems. This process is called hydraulic redistribution. During the night, when trees are not actively photosynthesizing, a tree with deep roots that has access to moist soil layers can pull up water and release it into the drier, shallower soil. This moisture then becomes available to neighboring plants with shallower roots. In this way, the deep-rooted tree acts as a communal well, helping to sustain the plant community around it during times of drought. The forest shares its resources in a silent underground exchange, ensuring the survival of the whole. Settle back into the soft pace of night. The rings of a tree tell a detailed story of its life. Each year, a tree adds a new layer of wood to its trunk, creating a growth ring. In the spring, when growth is fast, the wood is lighter in color and less dense. This is called early wood. In the late summer, growth slows, and the wood becomes darker and denser, forming late wood. A single ring consists of one light band and one dark band. The width of each ring reveals the conditions of that year. A wide ring suggests a good year with plenty of water and sunlight, while a narrow ring can indicate a drought, disease, or competition. Over time, the tree becomes a living archive of the seasons it has weathered. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. A single large, healthy tree can be a habitat for a multitude of other organisms. Its branches provide nesting sites for birds and homes for squirrels. Its bark provides a surface for lichens and mosses to grow, which in turn host a microscopic world of tiny invertebrates. The flowers of a tree provide nectar for bees and other pollinators, while its fruits and nuts feed a wide range of animals. Even when a tree is old and hollow, it offers shelter for creatures like owls, bats, and raccoons. In the gentle background, a tree is not a solitary individual, but a bustling community, a vertical city of life in the heart of the forest. Let the body be held by what supports you. Ferns are ancient plants that reproduce not with seeds, but with tiny, dust-like spores. You can often find these spores in small clusters called sori on the underside of their fronds. When mature, these sori release millions of spores into the air. Most will not survive, but a lucky few will land in a suitably moist and shady spot. There, a spore does not grow directly into a new fern. First, it grows into a tiny, heart-shaped structure called a gametophyte. This small plantlet produces both male and female cells, and if fertilization occurs, a new fern will begin to grow. With simple patience, the fern follows a two-part life cycle that has remained unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. Allow the day to fall away now. Trees can communicate with each other using chemical signals. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can release airborne chemicals called volatile organic compounds. These chemicals travel through the air and can be detected by neighboring trees. When a nearby tree receives this signal, it can begin to mount its own defenses, such as producing bitter-tasting chemicals in its leaves to deter the insects. This is a form of altruism, or at least a community-wide defense system. Through a soft lens, the forest air is not just air, but a medium for silent warnings and mutual protection, a conversation carried on the breeze. Rest in the quiet that follows. Soil is not just dirt, it is a living, breathing ecosystem. A single teaspoon of healthy forest soil can contain billions of microorganisms, including bacteria, archaea, fungi, and protozoa. These microbes are the primary drivers of decomposition, breaking down complex organic matter into simpler nutrients that plants can absorb. They also help to structure the soil, binding particles together to create air pockets and water channels. This microscopic community is the engine room of the forest, quietly at work beneath our feet, ensuring that nothing goes to waste and that life continues to cycle and renew. In a calm rhythm, the ground beneath you is more alive than it appears. Let your breathing find a slower pace. Some trees, like aspens and willows, can reproduce without seeds through a process called vegetative cloning. The quaking aspen is famous for this. An entire grove of aspen trees can be a single organism connected by a shared root system. These massive clones, sometimes called pando, can cover over 100 acres and weigh thousands of tons. The individual trunks or stems may only live for a century or so, but the root system can be ancient, surviving for thousands of years. It sends up new stems as old ones die, constantly renewing itself. Under quiet skies, a forest of trees can be one single ancient life, expressing itself in a multitude of trunks. Feel the simple ease of being here. The forest canopy has a layered structure, much like a building with several floors. The very top layer is the emergent layer, made up of the tallest trees that poke out above the rest. Below this is the main canopy, a dense, continuous layer of leaves and branches that captures most of the sunlight. Further down is the understory, populated by smaller trees and shrubs that are adapted to live in the shade. Finally, there is the forest floor, home to ferns, mosses, and wildflowers that can survive in the deep shade. With the same easy pace, each layer creates a distinct habitat with its own unique community of plants and animals, all living together in a vertically stacked world. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. The relationship between many fungi and tree roots, known as mycorrhiza, is one of the most important symbiotic partnerships on Earth. It is estimated that over 90% of plant species, including most trees, depend on these fungal partners. The fine fungal threads extend far beyond the reach of the tree's own roots, effectively increasing the root system's surface area by hundreds or even thousands of times. This allows the tree to gather water and scarce nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen from a much larger volume of soil. As the night settles, we see a partnership where two different forms of life merge their abilities to thrive together in a way neither could alone. Sense the stillness of the forest floor around you. In a mature forest, there is a constant, gentle rain of organic matter from the canopy to the floor. It is not just leaves and twigs. It can include fallen flowers, fruits, seeds, pieces of bark, and the droppings of insects and birds. This slow, continuous nourishment is vital for the health of the soil. It provides a steady food source for the decomposers living on and in the ground. Over many years, this process builds up a rich layer of topsoil, thick with organic carbon and essential nutrients. In this quiet corner, the forest is constantly feeding itself, letting go of what is old to provide for what is new, in a cycle of subtle and patient generosity. Let the image of the forest deepen your rest. The bristlecone pines of the western United States are among the oldest living organisms on Earth. Some of these trees have been alive for nearly 5,000 years. They survive in harsh, high-altitude environments where conditions are cold, dry, and windy. Their longevity is due to several adaptations. They grow incredibly slowly, creating very dense resinous wood that is resistant to insects, fungi, and rot. They can survive even if a large portion of their trunk dies, with only a thin strip of living bark continuing to sustain the tree. With steady breath, these trees endure not by growing fast and strong, but by being patient, resilient, and economical with their resources. The forest asks for nothing but your quiet presence. Tree roots do more than just absorb water and nutrients. They also play a crucial role in aerating the soil. As roots grow and push their way through the earth, they create channels and pores. When old roots die and decompose, they leave behind empty tunnels. These networks of channels allow oxygen to penetrate deeper into the soil, which is essential for the health of soil microorganisms and for the respiration of living roots themselves. They also help water to infiltrate the ground more effectively. As the pattern repeats, the tree's own growth helps to create a healthier, more breathable soil environment for itself and the surrounding ecosystem. Let the gentle cycles of the woods soothe your mind. The way a tree disperses its seeds is a marvel of engineering. Some trees, like maples, produce winged seeds called samaras that spin like helicopter blades, allowing them to travel long distances on the wind. Others, like oaks, produce heavy nuts that are often carried away and buried by squirrels which forget where they left some of them. Some trees, like cherries, encase their seeds in tasty fruit, encouraging birds and other animals to eat them and disperse the seeds in their droppings. And some, like witch hazel, have pods that dry and contract, eventually bursting and flinging their seeds far from the parent tree. Deeper in the soil, each seed carries a plan for its own journey. Feel the peace of the ancient trees settle over you. Photosynthesis is the process that powers nearly all life on Earth, and it happens quietly inside the leaves of trees. Using the green pigment chlorophyll, a leaf captures energy from sunlight. It uses this energy to convert carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil into glucose, a type of sugar. This sugar is the tree's food, providing the energy it needs to grow and function. A byproduct of this process is oxygen, which is released into the atmosphere. On a sunny day, an entire forest is a vast silent factory, breathing in carbon dioxide and breathing out the oxygen that we and so many other creatures depend on to live. High in the canopy, light is turned into life. Let that idea rest for a moment before we move on. Earthworms are quiet engineers of the forest floor. They tunnel through the soil, creating burrows that help to aerate it and allow water to penetrate more easily. As they move, they consume leaf litter and soil, digesting the organic matter and excreting it as nutrient-rich casts. This process, called bioturbation, mixes the different layers of the soil, bringing nutrients from deeper down up to the surface and pulling organic matter from the surface deeper into the ground. They are humble but essential partners in the process of decomposition and soil creation. In the dappled light, these small creatures perform a task of immense importance for the health of the entire forest. Nothing urgent here, only a slow and steady pattern. A lichen, which you often see growing on tree bark or rocks, is not a single organism. It is a composite being, a stable symbiotic partnership between a fungus and an alga or cyanobacterium. The fungus provides the structure and protection, absorbing water and nutrients from the environment. The alga or cyanobacterium, in turn, performs photosynthesis, creating sugars to feed both itself and the fungus. This remarkable partnership allows lichens to survive in some of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. In this way, two very different life forms come together to create something new, a resilient and self-sufficient entity that can thrive where neither could alone. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. When a large tree falls in the forest, it creates an opening in the canopy known as a tree fall gap. Suddenly, sunlight can reach the forest floor in that spot, a place that may have been in deep shade for a century or more. This sudden availability of light triggers a flurry of activity. Seeds that have been lying dormant in the soil for years may quickly germinate. Fast-growing, sun-loving plants and saplings will race to grow upward, competing to fill the gap. This process of renewal and competition is a key driver of diversity in the forest. Over time, the gap is not just an empty space, but a nursery for the next generation, a place of vigorous and opportunistic growth. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. The tallest trees in the world are the coast redwoods of California, which can soar to heights of over 115 meters, taller than a 35-story building. Getting water all the way up to their highest leaves is an incredible feat of physics. It is achieved through transpiration and the cohesive properties of water. As water evaporates from the leaves, it creates a tension that pulls the column of water below it upward. The water molecules stick together so strongly that the column does not break. From a distance, these trees are a testament to the power of quiet, persistent forces lifting water from the ground to the sky one molecule at a time. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. Trees, like many living things, follow daily rhythms known as circadian cycles. Even in constant darkness, they continue to raise and lower their branches in a daily pattern. During the day, branches and leaves are positioned to maximize their exposure to sunlight for photosynthesis. At night, some trees have been observed to let their branches droop slightly, a posture that scientists call sleep. This drooping can be subtle, just a few centimeters, but it suggests a period of rest and metabolic change. Up close, the tree is not just passively standing, but actively adjusting its posture in a slow, gentle cycle of waking and sleeping, tuned to the rhythm of the planet. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. The forest has a soundscape, but much of it is beyond our hearing. Researchers using sensitive microphones have discovered that during dry spells, trees can emit ultrasonic popping sounds. These sounds are thought to be caused by the formation of tiny air bubbles or embolisms in the xylem, the tissue that transports water. When the tension on the water column becomes too great, it can snap, creating a bubble. While this can be harmful to the tree, it is also a signal of its thirst. Beneath the surface, the forest is filled with these unheard sounds, a quiet acoustic record of the struggle for water. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. The roots of some trees, especially in wetlands, face the challenge of getting enough oxygen in waterlogged soil. Mangrove trees, which grow in coastal saltwater, have solved this problem with specialized roots called pneumatophores. These roots grow upward from the main root system, poking out of the mud and water like small snorkels. They are covered in tiny pores that allow the root system to breathe, taking in oxygen directly from the air. Elsewhere in this picture, a tree has learned to grow down into the soil for stability and up into the air for breath. A beautiful adaptation to a challenging world. Let the thoughts soften at the edges and fade. Forests play a significant role in cleaning the air we breathe. The surfaces of tree leaves and bark are very effective at trapping airborne pollutants, such as dust, pollen, and particles from smoke and exhaust. These particles settle on the leaves and are eventually washed to the ground by rain, where they are absorbed into the soil. Trees also absorb gaseous pollutants like ozone, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxides directly through the pores in their leaves, effectively filtering them from the atmosphere. In quieter hours, the forest acts as a vast, silent, and living filter, purifying the air with its millions of tiny leaves. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. The phenomenon of allelopathy is a form of quiet chemical competition between plants. Some trees, like the black walnut, produce chemicals that can inhibit the growth of other plants around them. The black walnut tree releases a compound called juglone from its roots, leaves, and nuts. This chemical can be toxic to many other plants, including some vegetables and other trees, preventing them from growing too close and competing for resources. With unhurried steps, the tree actively shapes its environment, creating a space for itself by discouraging its rivals. It is a slow, silent form of warfare waged with chemistry instead of thorns. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. Vernal pools are temporary pockets of water that form on the forest floor in the spring from melting snow and rain. These pools are special because they are isolated and do not have fish. This makes them crucial breeding grounds for certain species of amphibians, like wood frogs and mole salamanders. These creatures travel to the same pools year after year to lay their eggs. The pools provide a safe, predator-free environment for the tadpoles and larvae to develop. By late summer, the pools usually dry up completely, leaving behind only muddy depressions. Along a steady path, these ephemeral waters create a vital, pulsing nursery for the next generation of forest life. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. The inner wood of a tree trunk, known as heartwood, is actually dead. As a tree grows, the older xylem tissues in the center of the trunk stop transporting water and become filled with resins, gums, and other chemical compounds. This process makes the heartwood darker, denser, and much more resistant to decay and insects than the surrounding living wood, which is called sapwood. The heartwood's primary function is no longer transport, but structural support. It is the strong, solid spine that holds the tree upright. Without any hurry, what is no longer alive at the center of the tree provides the strength for the living part to continue reaching for the sky. Feel the calm gather around you again. The forest floor has its own temperature regulation system. During the day, the canopy blocks much of the sun's direct heat, keeping the ground below cool. The layer of leaf litter also acts as insulation. At night, this same canopy and litter layer help to trap the warmth radiating up from the ground, preventing the forest floor from getting as cold as an open field might. This moderation of temperature extremes creates a more stable and hospitable environment for the plants, animals, and microbes that live there. In the gentle background, the forest creates its own microclimate, a sheltered and gentle world buffered from the harshness outside its leafy walls. Settle back into the soft pace of night. Some pine trees have a special adaptation for fire. The cones of the lodgepole pine and jack pine are serotinous, meaning they are sealed shut with a strong resin. These cones can hang on the tree for years, protecting the seeds inside. They will only open to release their seeds when exposed to the intense heat of a forest fire. This allows the tree to regenerate quickly after a fire has cleared the area, giving its offspring a head start with plenty of sunlight and nutrient-rich ash. With simple patience, the tree holds onto its seeds, waiting for a moment of seeming destruction to create an opportunity for new life. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. The soil of a forest is organized into distinct layers, or horizons. The top layer, the O horizon, is made of fresh and decomposing organic matter, the leaf litter and duff. Below that is the A horizon, or topsoil, a dark, rich layer where organic matter is mixed with mineral particles. This is where most biological activity occurs. Further down are the B horizon, or subsoil, which is denser and has more clay, and the C horizon, which is composed of weathered parent rock. Through a soft lens, the ground is not uniform but a carefully structured biography of the forest's history, with each layer telling a story of time and transformation. Let the body be held by what supports you. When light filters through the forest canopy, it changes in quality. The leaves of trees absorb most of the red and blue wavelengths of light for photosynthesis. This means that the light that reaches the forest floor is enriched in green and far red wavelengths. Plants that live in the understory have adapted to this low-light, green-tinted environment. Many have broader, thinner leaves to capture as much of the available light as possible. Some even have different types of chlorophyll that are more efficient at using the specific wavelengths of light that are most abundant in the shade. In a calm rhythm, life adapts to the quality of the quiet light that trickles down from above. Allow the day to fall away now. Trees do not grow from their base. A tree grows taller from the tips of its branches and its main trunk, a region called the apical meristem. This is where cell division occurs, extending the shoot upward. It also grows wider as a different layer of cells. The vascular cambium adds new layers of xylem and phloem to the trunk and branches each year. This means that if you were to mark a spot on the trunk of a young tree, that spot would remain at the same height for the rest of the tree's life. It would simply get wider as the trunk expands around it. Under quiet skies, the tree reaches up from its outermost points, while its past height remains fixed in place. Rest in the quiet that follows. The aspen clone known as Pando, located in Utah, is considered one of the heaviest known organisms on Earth. It is a single male quaking aspen, connected by a massive underground root system. It covers 106 acres and is estimated to weigh over 6,000 metric tons. While the individual stems look like separate trees, they are genetically identical clones. The root system is thought to be many thousands of years old, possibly as old as 80,000 years, though this is difficult to confirm. With the same easy pace, Pando endures as a single ancient being, quietly regenerating itself over immense spans of time. Let your breathing find a slower pace. The banyan tree has a remarkable way of growing. It is a type of fig that begins its life as a seed deposited on another tree. From there, it sends down long aerial roots towards the ground. Once these roots reach the soil, they thicken and become woody, forming pillar-like trunks. Over time, a single banyan tree can create what looks like a small forest of interconnected trunks, all belonging to the same individual. Some banyan trees have spread to cover several acres, with canopies so large they can shelter thousands of people. As the night settles, imagine a tree that does not just grow up, but also walks outward, creating a forest of itself. Feel the simple ease of being here. The timing of when trees leaf out in the spring is a carefully calibrated process. Trees use environmental cues like increasing day length and rising temperatures to decide when it is safe to produce new, tender leaves. If they leaf out too early, a late frost could damage or kill the new growth. If they wait too long, they will miss out on valuable time for photosynthesis and lose the competitive edge to other plants. Each species has its own strategy, a finely tuned internal clock that balances risk and reward. In this quiet corner, the forest awakens not all at once, but in a staggered and cautious sequence, each tree making its own quiet calculation. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. Not all tree roots grow downward. In addition to the main structural roots, trees produce vast networks of fine feeder roots. These roots are opportunistic and grow wherever they can find resources. They will grow sideways for long distances, concentrate in nutrient-rich patches of soil, and even grow upward into the decomposing leaf litter on the forest floor, which is one of the most nutrient-rich zones. These fine roots are temporary, living for only a year or two before dying and being replaced. With steady breath, the tree is constantly exploring its surroundings, sending out delicate feelers to sense and absorb what it needs to survive. Sense the stillness of the forest floor around you. A large portion of a tree, about 50% of its dry weight, is made of carbon. Trees absorb carbon from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere through photosynthesis and convert it into the organic compounds that make up their wood, bark, leaves, and roots. This process is called carbon sequestration. A mature forest stores an immense amount of carbon, acting as a huge reservoir that keeps that carbon out of the atmosphere. When a tree dies and decomposes slowly on the forest floor, much of that carbon is incorporated into the soil. As the pattern repeats, the forest plays a quiet but powerful role in regulating the planet's carbon cycle. Let the image of the forest deepen your rest. The forest understory, the layer of vegetation beneath the main canopy, operates under very different rules than the sunny world above. Light is the most limited resource. Plants here are shade tolerant, meaning they are efficient at photosynthesis even in low light. They often have large, dark green leaves to maximize light capture. Growth is slow and patient. An understory sapling may wait for decades, growing only a tiny amount each year until a gap opens in the canopy above. When a sunbeam finally breaks through, it can spring into a period of rapid growth. Deeper in the soil, life in the understory is a long game of patience and readiness. The forest asks for nothing but your quiet presence. Slime molds are among the most unusual inhabitants of the forest floor. Despite their name, they are not fungi. They are single-celled organisms that can live independently, but also come together to form a single, large, moving body. This collective organism, called a plasmodium, can crawl slowly across decaying logs and leaf litter, engulfing bacteria and bits of organic matter. It moves like an amoeba, but on a massive scale. When conditions are right, it will stop moving and transform, producing fruiting bodies that release spores to create the next generation. High in the canopy, trees reach for the sky, while on the floor, these strange creatures flow like living jelly across the damp wood. Let the gentle cycles of the woods soothe your mind. The process of a tree shedding its leaves in the fall is carefully controlled. At the base of each leaf stalk is a special layer of cells called the abscission layer. In the autumn, as a response to shorter days and cooler temperatures, the tree produces hormones that cause the cells in this layer to weaken and separate. At the same time, a protective, corky layer forms on the twig side, sealing the wound that will be left behind when the leaf falls. This prevents water loss and infection. In the dappled light, the tree is not just letting its leaves go, it is actively and carefully detaching them, preparing itself for the winter dormancy ahead. Feel the peace of the ancient trees settle over you. Many trees have a clever way to protect their delicate, growing tips during the winter. They enclose the apical meristem, the group of cells responsible for new growth, inside a tough, waxy structure called a bud. These winter buds protect the embryonic leaves and flowers from cold, ice, and dehydration. Each tree species has a unique bud, varying in size, shape, color, and arrangement. For those who study them, these buds are like a key, allowing for the identification of a deciduous tree even in the middle of winter when all its leaves are gone. In this way, the tree holds the promise of spring securely wrapped up, waiting for the signal to unfurl. Let that idea rest for a moment before we move on. Mycorrhizal networks, the symbiotic fungi connecting tree roots, do more than just share nutrients. Evidence suggests they can also be used for defense signaling. If one tree in the network is attacked by harmful insects or pathogens, it can send chemical alarm signals through the fungal network to its neighbors. The connected trees can then receive this warning and begin to ramp up their own defensive chemistry before the threat even arrives. Over time, the forest is not just a collection of individuals, but a community that communicates and cooperates through a hidden underground web, sharing information for the collective good. Nothing urgent here, only a slow and steady pattern. The giant sequoia trees of California are the most massive single trees on Earth by volume. They are not the very tallest or the very widest, but their trunks are immense and columnar, maintaining their great girth high up into the sky. Their bark is also remarkable. It can be up to 90 centimeters thick, which is incredibly resistant to fire. This thick, spongy, fibrous bark does not burn easily and insulates the living wood inside from the heat of forest fires. It also protects the tree from insect damage and the impacts of falling trees. Meanwhile, this ancient giant protects itself with a soft, thick armor, allowing it to survive for millennia. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. The soil on the forest floor is often structured into aggregates. These are clumps of soil particles held together by a sticky glue produced by bacteria and fungal hyphae. This structure is vital for soil health. The spaces between the aggregates create a network of pores that allow air and water to move through the soil. This prevents the soil from becoming compacted and waterlogged. These aggregates also help to protect organic matter from being decomposed too quickly, creating a slow-release bank of nutrients. As you rest, picture the soil not as a uniform powder, but as a carefully constructed porous sponge, built by the microscopic life within it. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. Many spring wildflowers on the forest floor are known as ephemerals. They have a very short and hurried life cycle, designed to take advantage of a brief window of opportunity. They emerge, grow, flower, and produce seeds in the early spring, before the deciduous trees above have leafed out. During this short period, the forest floor receives plenty of sunlight. Once the canopy closes and the floor is cast into shade, these plants die back, their leaves wither, and they retreat to their underground bulbs or rhizomes. From a distance, they are a fleeting burst of color, a quick and beautiful sprint to complete their life's work before the summer shade arrives. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. The relationship between squirrels and oak trees is a classic example of mutualism. The oak tree produces acorns, a rich source of food for the squirrel. The squirrel, in turn, helps the oak tree to reproduce. Squirrels are hoarders. They collect far more acorns than they can eat at once and bury them in various locations to retrieve later. However, they are not perfect at remembering all their hiding places. The forgotten acorns are planted in ideal conditions, away from the parent tree and tucked safely underground, where they are protected and can germinate into new oak saplings. Up close, a moment of forgetfulness on the part of a squirrel becomes an act of creation for the forest. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. Some trees, when they are damaged, produce a substance called resin. This is a sticky, aromatic liquid that oozes out to cover the wound. You may know it from pine or fir trees. This resin serves several protective functions. It creates a physical barrier that prevents insects and fungal spores from entering the tree. It also contains chemical compounds that are toxic or repellent to these potential threats. As the resin is exposed to air, it slowly hardens into amber, sealing the wound permanently. Beneath the surface, the tree has its own system of first aid, a liquid bandage that both protects and heals, deploying automatically when the tree is injured. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. The process of decomposition on the forest floor is a relay race involving many different organisms. In the first stage, small invertebrates like mites and springtails, along with bacteria, begin to shred the fresh leaf litter, breaking it into smaller pieces. In the next stage, other types of fungi and bacteria work on these smaller fragments, breaking down tough materials like cellulose and lignin. Finally, earthworms and other soil creatures ingest the partially decomposed material, mixing it with mineral soil and further refining it. Elsewhere in this picture, a single fallen leaf passes through many hands on its journey back to the earth, each organism playing its part in the cycle of renewal. Let the thought soften at the ages and fade. Trees living at high altitudes or in cold climates must cope with the weight of snow and ice. Evergreen trees like spruces and firs have adapted to this with a conical shape and downward sloping branches. This design helps to shed snow rather than accumulate it. If too much snow builds up, the weight could easily break the branches. The flexible branches can bend significantly under a heavy load and then spring back into place once the snow melts or slides off. In quiet hours, the very shape of the tree is a thoughtful response to its environment, a design for resilience in a world of heavy burdens. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. The air inside a forest is different from the air in a city or an open field. It contains a complex mixture of airborne chemicals released by plants, known as biogenic volatile organic compounds. One of these is a group of compounds called phytoncides, which trees produce to protect themselves from pests and diseases. Some studies suggest that inhaling these compounds can have a calming effect on humans. When you breathe in the scent of a forest, a scent of pine or damp earth, you are breathing in this complex chemical language of the trees. With unhurried steps, you are taking in the very essence of the forest's own defense and communication system. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. While most trees absorb water through their roots, redwood trees have an additional strategy. They live in a coastal environment where fog is common. These towering trees can absorb a significant amount of water directly from the fog through their needles. This process, called foliar uptake, is especially important during the dry summer months when rainfall is scarce. It supplements the water drawn up from the ground and helps to keep the upper canopy hydrated. This ability to drink from the clouds is one of the secrets to their immense height and longevity. Along a steady path, the tallest of trees has learned to find water not just from below, but also from the air around it. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. The wood of a tree is not a solid, uniform material. It is a composite made primarily of cellulose fibers held together by a rigid binder called lignin. Cellulose provides tensile strength, a bit like the steel reinforcing bars in concrete. Lignin provides compressive strength like the concrete itself. This combination makes wood incredibly strong and yet flexible. It can bend under the force of the wind without breaking and support the immense weight of the tree's own canopy. Without any hurry, nature has engineered a material that is both light enough to grow tall and strong enough to stand for centuries, all from water, air, and sunlight. Feel the calm gather around you again. Have you ever noticed how the forest floor is often quiet after a fresh snowfall? The snow acts as a natural sound insulator. A layer of fresh, light snow is made up of many individual ice crystals with a lot of air trapped between them. This porous structure is very effective at absorbing sound waves rather than reflecting them. This is why a walk in the woods on a snowy day can feel so peaceful and muffled. In the gentle background, the world is wrapped in a blanket of silence, dampening the echoes and quieting the space between the trees, a hush that is both physical and felt. settle back into the soft pace of night. The way a tree's branches are arranged, a field of study called tree architecture, is not random. It follows specific patterns that optimize the exposure of leaves to sunlight while also providing structural stability. Some trees have a pattern of opposite branching, where two branches grow from the same point on opposite sides of the stem. Others have alternate branching, where branches are staggered. The angles of the branches and the distances between them are often governed by mathematical principles. With simple patience, the tree builds itself according to a hidden blueprint, a geometric strategy for gathering light and bearing weight with maximum efficiency. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. Many plants on the forest floor, like wild ginger, have a clever strategy for seed dispersal that uses ants. This is called myrmecuggery. The plant's seeds have a small, fleshy, nutrient-rich attachment called an eliasm. Ants are attracted to this eliasm and will carry the entire seed back to their nest to feed it to their larvae. Once the eliasm has been eaten, the ants discard the still viable seed in their underground waste chambers. These chambers are rich in nutrients and provide a safe, protected place for the seed to germinate. Through a soft lens, the plant offers a small payment to the ant in exchange for a private and well-tended burial service. Let the body be held by what supports you. Birds' nest fungi are tiny, fascinating inhabitants of the forest floor, often found on decaying wood or woody debris. They look like miniature birds' nests, complete with tiny eggs. The nest is a small cup that serves as a splash cup. The eggs, called peridioles, contain the spores. When a raindrop falls into the cup with just the right angle and force, it splashes the peridioles out of the nest, sending them a meter or more away. The peridiole has a sticky thread that can catch and wrap around a nearby twig or blade of grass, placing the spores in a new location to grow. In a calm rhythm, this tiny fungus uses the power of a raindrop to ensure its next generation takes flight. Allow the day to fall away now. Even in winter, a deciduous forest is not entirely dormant. The trees may look lifeless, but inside their woody tissues, slow metabolic processes continue. The tree is respiring, consuming the stored sugars it made during the summer to stay alive. The roots may continue to grow, albeit very slowly, if the soil is not frozen. The tree is also sensing the environment, keeping track of the chilling hours it needs to experience before it can break dormancy in the spring. Under quiet skies, the tree is in a state of deep rest, not sleep, a patient and watchful waiting for the return of longer days and the warmth of the sun. Rest in the quiet that follows. The canopies of trees are home to a world of life that rarely, if ever, touches the ground. This includes certain species of insects, spiders, and even some salamanders and frogs that live their entire lives in the branches. They find everything they need in the canopy: water collected in the axils of leaves, food from insects, and shelter in crevices of the bark. This treetop world is one of the last frontiers of biodiversity research. With the same easy pace, an entire ecosystem lives and dies dozens of meters above our heads, a parallel world floating on a sea of green leaves. Let your breathing find a slower pace. The texture of tree bark can change as a tree ages. A young tree may have smooth, thin bark, but as it grows older and its trunk expands, the bark often becomes thicker, rougher, and more furrowed. This is because the outer bark is dead tissue and cannot stretch, so it cracks and splits as the tree gains girth. The patterns of these fissures and ridges are distinctive to each species. Looking at the bark of a large, old tree, you are seeing a physical record of its long life of expansion. As the night settles, the deep grooves on an ancient oak are like wrinkles, a testament to its many years of slow, steady growth. Feel the simple ease of being here. The amount of light reaching the forest floor can be less than 1% of the sunlight hitting the top of the canopy. This creates an environment of deep shade. However, this is not constant. The sun's movement, combined with rustling leaves, creates moments of brighter light called sunflecks. These are brief, moving patches of direct sunlight that dapple the forest floor. For many understory plants, these short bursts of intense light can account for a significant portion of their daily energy intake. In this quiet corner, life in the shade is sustained by these fleeting, precious moments of brightness, like golden coins falling through the leaves. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. Indian pipe is a strange and beautiful plant you might find on the forest floor. It is completely white, with no chlorophyll, so it cannot perform photosynthesis. Instead of making its own food, it gets its energy in a very roundabout way. It is a parasite, but not directly on trees. It taps into the underground mycorrhizal network of fungi that are connected to tree roots. The Indian pipe steals the sugars that the tree is passing to its fungal partner. With steady breath, this ghost-like plant has found a way to live without light, becoming a silent thief that intercepts messages and resources on the forest's hidden web. Sense the stillness of the forest floor around you. A gnarled and twisted tree is not a sign of weakness, but of resilience. Trees that grow in exposed, windy locations, like on a mountainside or coastal cliff, are constantly sculpted by the wind. The constant pressure from one direction can cause the tree to grow asymmetrically, with a thicker trunk and stronger roots on the windward side. The branches may be swept back, giving the tree a flag-like appearance. This is not a deformity, but a living record of the tree's struggle and adaptation. As the pattern repeats, the tree's form tells the story of the invisible forces it has endured throughout its long and patient life. Let the image of the forest deepen your rest. Many insects on the forest floor are detritivores, meaning they specialize in eating dead organic matter. Millipedes are a perfect example. They slowly crawl through the leaf litter, consuming decaying leaves and wood. They are not fast or aggressive, but they are incredibly important. By breaking down this tough plant material, they speed up the process of decomposition and make the nutrients within the leaves available to smaller organisms like bacteria and fungi. They are quiet recyclers, turning death back into life, one slow mouthful at a time. Deeper in the soil, these many-legged creatures are essential gardeners, cultivating the health of the very ground they walk on. The forest asks for nothing but your quiet presence. The direction that a fallen log lies on the forest floor, its orientation, can influence the community of life that grows on it. A log lying along an east-west axis will have one side that is consistently sunnier and drier, and another side that is shadier and moister. This creates different microclimates and favors different species of mosses, fungi, and seedlings on each side. A log lying on a north-south axis will have more uniform conditions. High in the canopy, the sun seems uniform, but on the floor, even the angle of a fallen log creates a diversity of worlds, small variations that matter immensely to the life seeking a home. Let the gentle cycles of the woods soothe your mind. The age of a forest changes its character. A young forest, one that is regrowing after a fire or logging, is often dense with fast-growing, sun-loving trees. The canopy is uniform and there is less structural diversity. An old-growth forest, on the other hand, is a complex mosaic. It has trees of many different ages and sizes, a multi-layered canopy with gaps, and a significant amount of large, decaying logs and standing dead trees on the floor. This complexity creates a much wider variety of habitats and supports a greater diversity of species. In the dappled light, time adds layers and texture to the forest, creating a richer, more intricate community. Feel the peace of the ancient trees settle over you. When a seed germinates, it must solve a critical problem. Which way is up and which way is down? It solves this using gravity. Inside the cells of the root tip and the shoot tip are tiny, dense granules called statoliths. These granules are heavier than the rest of the cell and will settle on whichever side is facing down. This signals to the cell which way gravity is pulling. The roots will then grow in the direction of gravity, a response called gravitropism, while the shoot will grow in the opposite direction, away from gravity. In this way, even in complete darkness, the tiny seedling knows how to orient itself, sending its roots into the earth and its shoot towards the sky. Let that idea rest for a moment before we move on. After a forest fire, the soil is often covered with a layer of ash and charcoal. This material, known as biochar, has some remarkable properties. It is very porous and can hold on to water and nutrients, preventing them from being washed away by rain. This helps to make the soil fertile for the next wave of plants. The charcoal is also very stable and breaks down incredibly slowly. This means that the carbon it contains is locked away in the soil for hundreds or even thousands of years. Over time, what is left behind by the fire becomes a long-term investment in the future fertility and carbon storage of the forest. Nothing urgent here, only a slow and steady pattern. The air beneath the forest floor is not stagnant. It is part of a slow, underground breathing process. Changes in atmospheric pressure at the surface can cause air to be pushed into or pulled out of the soil. Rainwater infiltrating the ground also displaces soil air. The roots of plants and the activity of soil organisms consume oxygen and produce carbon dioxide, creating a gas gradient that drives a slow diffusion of gases. Meanwhile, the forest ground itself is in a state of constant, gentle, gaseous exchange with the atmosphere. A breath so slow, it takes hours and days instead of seconds. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. Trees cannot run from danger, so they have developed a sophisticated internal defense system. When a tree's leaves are damaged by an insect, the plant can reroute resources away from that area. It can also produce defensive chemicals. Some of these chemicals make the leaves taste bad or become indigestible. Others are toxins that can harm or kill the insects. Some trees even produce compounds that attract predators of the insects that are eating them, essentially calling for bodyguards. As you rest, consider the tree not as a passive victim, but as an active participant in its own defense, a silent chemist protecting its own body. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. The roots of different trees in a forest are often physically connected. This can happen when the roots of two trees of the same species grow together and fuse, a process called inosculation. Once fused, these trees can share water and nutrients through their connected vascular systems. This is particularly common in dense stands of trees, like beeches or firs. This network of root grafts can help to support weaker or shaded trees, increasing the overall resilience of the stand. From a distance, the trees look like individuals, but underground they may be physically joined, a community linked by their very tissues. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. Fungi are the primary decomposers of lignin, the tough, rigid compound that makes wood hard. Without fungi, the forest would be buried under a mountain of undecayed wood. Different fungi specialize in different types of rot. White rot fungi can break down both lignin and cellulose, leaving behind a soft, stringy, bleached-looking wood. Brown rot fungi primarily consume the cellulose, leaving behind a blocky, brown, crumbly material. This process is slow and can take many years for a large log. Up close, these humble organisms are performing a feat of biochemical engineering that is essential for recycling the nutrients locked away in wood. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. Forests have a memory of past events that can be read in their structure. A layer of charcoal in the soil points to a fire hundreds of years ago. A large number of trees, all of the same age, might indicate regrowth after a major storm or logging event. The species composition can tell a story of climate change over centuries. An old-growth forest, in particular, is a living library of ecological history. Beneath the surface of its current peace lies a long and often dramatic story of disturbance, recovery, and slow, patient change, all written in the language of trees and soil. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. Trees can help to create rain. Through transpiration, forests release vast quantities of water vapor into the atmosphere. This increases humidity and contributes to cloud formation. But they do more than that. They also release tiny airborne particles, including bacteria and fungal spores, that can act as cloud condensation nuclei. These particles provide a surface for water vapor to condense upon, forming the droplets that make up clouds. Elsewhere in this picture, a forest is not just a passive receiver of rain, but an active participant in its creation, seeding the clouds that will eventually water it. Let the thought soften at the edges and fade. The timing of autumn leaf fall is not the same for all species in a forest. Some trees, like ash and walnut, tend to lose their leaves relatively early. Others, like oaks and beeches, hold on to their leaves for much longer, sometimes well into the winter. This staggered timing has ecological benefits. It means that the influx of nutrients from decomposing leaves is spread out over a longer period, allowing the soil community to process it more effectively. In quieter hours, the forest orchestrates its annual release of nutrients, not in one large pulse, but in a slow, carefully timed sequence, ensuring a smooth and steady transition. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. The world's most widespread tree species is the common aspen, also known as quaking aspen. Its range extends across North America, Europe, and Asia. Its success is due to its remarkable adaptability. It can tolerate a wide range of temperatures and soil conditions. It reproduces both by seed, which can travel long distances on the wind, and by cloning from its root system, which allows it to spread rapidly once established. With unhurried steps, this simple tree has managed to find a home across an entire hemisphere, a testament to the power of being flexible and having more than one way to grow. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. Some orchids have a very particular relationship with fungi. Their seeds are tiny, like dust, and contain almost no food reserves. To germinate and grow, the seedling must be adopted by a specific type of mycorrhizal fungus. The fungus provides the young orchid with all the water and nutrients it needs to survive its first few years of life. Some orchids continue this relationship for their entire lives, while others eventually develop leaves and start to photosynthesize on their own. Along a steady path, the life of a beautiful flower begins in darkness, completely dependent on the generosity of a hidden fungal partner. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. Trees communicate their age and health through the chemicals they release. A young, vigorous tree and an old, stressed tree will emit different blends of volatile organic compounds. Insects that specialize in attacking weak or dying trees, like certain bark beetles, can detect these chemical signals. They are drawn to the scent of a tree that is already in decline, a signal that its defenses might be down. Without any hurry, trees are constantly broadcasting a quiet bulletin about their current condition, a chemical status report that is read by the other inhabitants of the forest. Feel the calm gather around you again. When a tree dies but remains standing, it is known as a snag. These snags are incredibly valuable wildlife habitat. Woodpeckers excavate cavities in the soft, decaying wood to create nests. These abandoned woodpecker holes are then used by a whole host of other animals that cannot create their own cavities, such as bluebirds, chickadees, owls, and squirrels. The peeling bark provides shelter for bats and insects. The decaying wood is a food source for countless organisms. In the gentle background, A dead tree is often more full of animal life than a living one, a standing monument that continues to give back to the forest community. Settle back into the soft pace of night. Forest soils have a natural filtering capacity. As rainwater seeps down through the layers of soil, it is cleansed of impurities. The physical structure of the soil traps sediments and particles. The chemical properties of clay and organic matter combine with pollutants like heavy metals, immobilizing them. And the community of soil microbes can break down and metabolize some harmful organic compounds. By the time the water reaches the groundwater level, it is often significantly cleaner than when it first hit the ground. With simple patience, the earth beneath the trees acts as a slow, living water purification system, ensuring the purity of the deep wells below. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. The thickness of a tree's annual growth rings can be used by scientists to reconstruct past climates. This field is called dendrochronology. By taking a small core sample from an old tree, scientists can analyze the pattern of wide and narrow rings. By cross-referencing these patterns with other trees in the region, both living and dead, they can build a timeline of weather conditions stretching back hundreds or even thousands of years. Through a soft lens, the trees become silent historians, their bodies holding a precise and detailed record of the droughts, wet years, and changing seasons of a forgotten time. Let the body be held by what supports you. The forest canopy can significantly reduce wind speed. The complex structure of branches and leaves creates a lot of friction, slowing the air as it moves through. In a dense forest, the wind speed near the ground can be less than 10% of the wind speed above the canopy. This creates a calm, sheltered environment on the forest floor. This reduction in wind also helps to reduce moisture loss from both the soil and the plants themselves. In a calm rhythm, the forest builds its own refuge, a quiet sanctuary from the blustering world outside. Allow the day to fall away now. Some of the sounds we associate with the forest are produced by the trees themselves. On a windy day, the rustling of leaves is the sound of thousands of tiny surfaces interacting with the moving air. In the winter, the creaking and groaning of tree trunks and branches is the sound of the wood flexing and straining under the force of the wind, or responding to changes in temperature. These are the sighs and whispers of the forest, a quiet language of physics and motion. Under quiet skies, the trees are not just silent witnesses. They have a voice, one that speaks of wind, weather, and the patient endurance of their own bodies. Rest in the quiet that follows. The process of plants growing towards a light source is called phototropism. It is controlled by a hormone called auxin. Auxin is produced at the tip of the growing shoot and migrates downwards. It is sensitive to light, so it tends to accumulate on the shaded side of the stem. In the stem, auxin promotes cell elongation. This means the cells on the shaded side grow longer and faster than the cells on the sunny side. This differential growth causes the stem to bend and grow towards the light. With the same easy pace, the plant steers itself with hormones, a simple and elegant mechanism for seeking the source of its energy. Let your breathing find a slower pace. The edges of a forest are a unique habitat, different from both the deep woods and the open field. This is known as the edge effect. These areas often have higher biodiversity because they can support species from both ecosystems. They get more sunlight than the forest interior, allowing a thick growth of shrubs and vines. This dense vegetation provides excellent cover and food for many animals. However, forest edges can also be windier and drier, and some deep forest species cannot tolerate these conditions. As the night settles, the boundary is not just a line, but a distinct place with its own character, a zone of transition and opportunity. Feel the simple ease of being here. The simple act of walking in a forest has been shown to have a calming effect on the human body and mind. The quiet sounds, the dappled light, the earthy smells, and the sense of being in a living, breathing space can lower stress levels and promote a feeling of well-being. There is nothing to achieve, no destination to reach. It is simply about being present in a world that operates on a slower, more patient timescale. In this quiet corner, you can let go of the hurry of the day and attune yourself to the gentle, steady rhythm of the woods, a rhythm that is pulsed with life for millennia. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. And so our walk through the forest comes to a gentle close. We have felt the quiet strength of the trees and the deep peace of the world beneath them. The forest continues its slow, steady life. Water is drawn up from the soil, leaves turn toward the sun. Life on the forest floor continues its work of renewal. You are a part of these natural rhythms, made of the same elements, moved by the same quiet energies. As you drift deeper into sleep, you can feel that connection. The peace of the forest is within you, a calm, steady place to rest. The night is quiet now. Sleep well.